Welcome to Great Companies, Great Leaders. I'm Christine Gannon, and I am the founder and CEO of Brightworks Consulting, and super honored for this edition of Great Companies, Great Leaders to introduce Kellie Walenciak, who is the head of marketing and communications for Televerde. Please welcome Kellie, and she is responsible for developing and executing a marketing strategy and the brand image amongst a lot of other things that we're going to talk about today. Kellie, welcome.
Thank you very much, Christine. I'm excited to be here.
So, a little bit about Kellie before we get started, because I really like to give everyone a bit of background about our guests, so you have some context for why we're doing this podcast and interview. So, previously, Kellie spent 14 years at Avaya, where she served as the global head of employee engagement and was an executive communications partner to the CMO, amongst other departments. And before Avaya, Kellie held marketing and communications roles at Prudential Financial and PSEG Energy Technologies. And with a communications career spanning over 2 decades, Kellie has honed a keen sense of ambiguity, contradiction, and subtlety. And she's a staunch, I love this. I love this part of your bio. Can I just tell you that? She's a staunch grammar aficionado with a penchant for the red pen, a trait celebrated by her colleagues, but often lamented by her closest friends and family. Kellie gives back to her community by volunteering for the Televerde Foundation and Farm Sanctuary in Watkins Glen, New York. And outside of work, Kellie cherishes moments with her husband, Matt, and her 3 children. So welcome. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So can you tell us a little bit? We're going to start a little bit about your leadership, start the podcast with a little bit about your leadership journey and what path you took to arrive in your role.
Yeah, well, for me, I've always been a career communications professional. So really kind of grew in employee communications, internal communications. Eventually it became employee engagement. So that is where I spent majority of my career. I came to Televerde. It was really exciting because, at this point I had probably been about 25 years in my career, and I was given the opportunity to lead corporate communications, which was, the internal piece, but also PR and social media. And I have to tell you, I love PR. I just, I love the strategy it takes trying to figure out what stories to tell, what stories are going to cement different types of content. So I really took to that side immediately. Over time, I've been with Televerde now. Actually, today is my 5-year anniversary. So that's exciting. Yeah. So over time, they handed content marketing to me, and then eventually all of marketing. So I've had, I wasn't a stranger to marketing necessarily, because for the last 5 years at my previous company, Avaya, we were situated in marketing. But for most of my career, it was HR. That is where traditionally communication sits. But I have to say, between HR and then marketing, I've really had a unique view into all areas of the business, which has been extremely helpful. But really, my love of storytelling, regardless of the audience, is what I love most. And that's the gift of working at Televerde, is that there is no shortage of powerful, moving, emotional, and intense stories that I believe make people think, and that really change hearts and minds, not just in the business community, but society overall. So it makes my job really easy as the head of marketing and communications.
So I can't wait to dive into Televerde and share with our listeners the for-profit side and the not-for-profit side of Televerde. But before we go there, talk to me a little bit about leadership and your thoughts and perspective on what do you think makes a great leader?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I will tell you that over the years, I've asked my husband, like ad nauseum, when I would get frustrated with leadership throughout my journey. At what point or level do leaders forget what it's like to be an employee?
Mm.
And this wasn't just kind of idle curiosity; it stemmed from seeing too many leaders that I worked with, or didn't work directly with, indirectly, who either seemed to have lost that connection or never cared much to maintain it in the first place. So when I think about being a good leader, to me, it's about remembering that journey from being on the front lines as an employee. And it's really about being intentional about keeping in touch with those everyday challenges. So the push and pull between meeting work deadlines and maintaining a personal life, the pressure to not just meet, but exceed expectations, and really the stress that comes with all of that. So I think when you've been in those shoes, and when you remember being in those shoes, it's just instinctive that you bring empathy and understanding to the table as a leader. So the one thing I always tell my team, um, it's only one grain of sand in the Sahara. And it's important to not get overwhelmed. And I don't want anyone going to bed stressed or thinking that they can't sleep because of a job. So, and I also recognize that for my team to be passionate and strive for excellence, it should not come at the cost of their peace of mind. And in my role as a leader, I have to create that environment where they can do their best without losing sleep, and supporting and empowering them. And I think that's the essence of what good leaders do and prioritize for their teams.
Think it's a really interesting role and difficult role at some level, given that when I think back over the last 3 years and we think about the pandemic and we think about women exiting en masse and we think about all the different challenges that have been presented, I'm sure each generation says this was the biggest thing ever. But for leaders, I think it's taken a whole different view and perspective on how to be a great leader. And to your point, how to ensure that your team stays motivated, engaged, especially in a hybrid or work from home environment, which we had to do for a while, and how to really keep them from losing sleep over their role, and you as a leader staying engaged and motivated and focused. To your point, what's happening on the front line, what's happening with all of my employees. So I appreciate your perspective on that.
No, thank you. And we'll talk about this more, but we talked about COVID, and that certainly changed the dynamics of the workplace, and how we support our employees. Hopefully, all leaders know that they have to kind of go deeper and prioritize it more than we ever had in the past. But for my particular company, which we'll talk about, most of our workforce is also incarcerated. So that uniqueness, it requires greater empathy. And I don't want to kind of rush things, but that's just a unique view into like the unconventional workplace that I'm a part of now. And
I
I
think
think being a part of it has actually changed who I am as a leader and how I lead. I have greater empathy than I did in high tech. It just, yeah, I think it just comes with being in this workplace. But I know for even other people where it might not be as natural, you can't succeed here without being intentional about having that, working at having that empathy and understanding because it's essential.
absolutely. And I think as we move away from the pandemic, maybe I never know if we're in or out, but compassionate leadership has really taken center stage, regardless of industry. And so I think that's been a positive outcome from all that, industry has gone through. But you teed up my next question perfectly, which is transitioning to Televerde, your organization, and talking a little bit about that. And so to set some context, every year, more than 600,000 men and women are released from state and federal prisons. And several organizations, both profit and not for profit, are taking steps to help the incarcerated integrate into society, giving momentum to what is called the second chance movement. And we know that just statistically, if former incarcerated individuals have gainful employment within the first 30 to 90 days of their release, it reduces recidivism. And the United Legion One Nation, I just want to give credit to them. They're saying 45%, up to 45% of reduction in recidivism. And Televerde, if we look at your organization, the mission is really to support B2B, right? A B2B services company. We're going to talk about the foundation, which is a not-for-profit. But Televerde really is enabling, whether we're talking about the for profit or not for profit, you're really enabling women to break this generational cycle potentially of poverty and incarceration. And so I want to talk a little bit about that, and maybe you can just share a little bit about Televerde. How does it work? What are the outcomes of Televerde, and a little bit more?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's my favorite topic. So, yeah, so Televerde has actually been around, I think, 27 years now. So, it launched in 1994. And to put perspective around that year, I like to juxtapose it with where we were at as a country during that time. It was the same year that we passed the Tough on Crime bill, which
Mm.
actually significantly contributed to the mass incarceration, what I would call a crisis that we face today. And I was very young then. I didn't know about Televerde, but when I reflect back on that year and what the mood of the country was, to know that there was a handful of business leaders who had come together in Arizona to kind of support these women in an Arizona women's prison, it's pretty, it's pretty incredible, because while the country was saying lock them up and throw away the key, there were these men there that were saying, I think they deserve another shot. And because of that, they started to really skill women in the art of sales and marketing, which grew over time. It started in a little trailer on a women's prison facility, handful of employees, a couple of IBM computers, and now we're a 650 plus global company. And we've had over 3,500 graduates of our prison to workforce program. So, a little bit about what we do. So, our mission is to drive both business growth and societal change. And we do that by partnering with large enterprise companies. So, think mostly in the tech space. So, SAP, we've worked with Microsoft, we've worked with Adobe, GE. So names that roll off the tongue, people know them, they're aware of them, and we provide inside sales and demand generation, so revenue as a service, and we're able to optimize business outcomes for them. With the socially responsible business model, which is our incarcerated agents who are being skilled, as I said, and they're able to apply what they've learned in a real life business setting. So through on the job experience. So it's been quite incredible for them. And I think one of the competitive advantages for I think Televerde working with us is there's a lot of churn in contact centers. It's always a chief complaint that people come in and then they leave and they come in. So clients are always dealing with new agents, and at Televerde, because of our model, our agents are the average tenure is between 4 to 5 years. And what that translates into for our clients is they become true extensions of a client's sales and marketing team. So they're not just dialing for dollars. They're weighing in on strategy. They're making recommendations. They're working day in and day out on the phone with these sales and marketing teams, and really getting involved in the nitty gritty of those strategies, which is so important. And the model works because for our clients, we've delivered over $12 billion in revenue. And as I said, we've had more than 3,500 women since 1994 graduate our program with a recidivism rate, and recidivism means reconviction, of 5.4%. So to put that in perspective, the national average for 3 years is 68%. That means within 3 years, 60%, 68% of the men and women who got out of prison will go back into prison. And when you look at the 5 year mark, it goes up to 80%. So the Televerde model, making this investment, is changing lives for the better.
So the recidivism rate, 5.4% over
That's
three
right.
years.
That's right. Yeah. So we have a 3 year recidivism rate of 5.4%. We had worked with Arizona State University, the Seidman Research Institute, and we unveiled, they did a study that we released in 2020 that showed the social, economic, and fiscal impact of our model since our inception. And not only was it that recidivism rate, but it was also the generational impact that I think is so important. So for the children of the women who work for us, they are 11 times less likely to be incarcerated and 11 times more likely to graduate high school and go on to higher education. So there's a real generational effect to what we're doing, which is
Amazing.
important.
It's phenomenal. So, a couple things that you mentioned I want to pull out before I go on to the next question. One, it was started in Arizona, but it's a global company, which
That's
is
right.
just grown globally over the last since 1994. So it's a go ahead.
Right. Our model is not global. So our company is global. We have offices that are not incarcerated in Cordoba and in Glasgow. And then in the United States, we started in the Arizona prison system and then we expanded. We're in 3 prison facilities in Indiana and 1 in Florida.
And so women engage with this program. They find out about this program while they're incarcerated, but then they have a career and a skill set when they leave. True.
That's right. That's right. And it's not even you can't just join the program. I mean, we're a for-profit company, so we want to hire the best people, right? So they go through an interview process just as you or I would on the outside. And sometimes we have many women who actually talk about this. They don't make it the first time. They don't make it the second time, but we give very clear feedback as to what they didn't do or what they didn't
Mm.
get, and then they go back and work on it and they come back. So it's considered a top tier job in the prisons. We also pay state minimum wage for the right to work with the women, so they're able to save quite a bit of money to help with reentry, which is so important. And they're also able to contribute, be a financial provider to their children while they're incarcerated. And that feeling of normal, it means something, to lose your independence, but to be able to retain um, the ability to provide financially to your kids while you're incarcerated is incredible, and to help your families who are helping to raise your kids. 80% of women who are incarcerated are moms. So um,
Really? Okay, I did
yes,
not
yes.
know that.
So yes,
80% of women
that's right.
incarcerated are moms. Wow.
That is correct. Mhm.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the foundation for a minute, because I know the two work together and we talked a little bit about this offline. But can you share a little bit about the mission and the outcome and why the foundation is so important to the for profit side of the business?
Yeah, well, one thing that I loved about Televerde, and one of the reasons why I joined this company was because I felt it was genuinely invested in the success of these women. This wasn't just a for-profit company going after cheap prison labor. This was a company that was in with these women for the long haul. And what they always did over the years was kind of take a step back and say, okay, what could we be doing more of to support the women? What do we need to be doing less of? What could we be doing differently? And they realized pretty early on that um, the women needed more than what the business could provide. Okay. So when they re-entered, being able to be qualified for a job was great, but there were also unresolved issues of maybe why they went to prison, and then integration issues when they would return back into their families, and learning how to manage a budget, and going out and buying a car, which is something that we do every day, but get a good deal, because a lot of the women would come back, and I know the people who have been here a while would say, okay, this was not a good deal for you. So how do we avoid that? So we always had a reentry program in place, and that's evolved with the company. So it started internally with a reentry program, and then we realized we wanted to do more, and that it needed to be run by people who had that particular skill set to keep, making sure that women had the support they needed. So in 2020, we launched Televerde Foundation, and the brilliance of that is the program is led by our Chief Impact Officer, Michelle Sirocco, who is also now the Executive Director of Televerde Foundation, and she's a graduate of the program. So she knows firsthand what women need when they come out of prison, and jobs is certainly one, as I said, but also life skills training, financial literacy, career readiness, dress for success, job placement. So all of these different programs that go in, to providing that level of support that they need. And in addition to that, when a woman is released from prison, she's automatically matched up with a transitional mentor. And this is a woman who has been in their shoes. They've come out of prison, they've successfully transitioned, they're living a an amazing life, their best selves, and they're there to support these women because reentry is very, very overwhelming. And then they also, at a certain point, they'll get a professional mentor that they continue to meet with so that they can grow in their careers. So it really is, I always describe it as the foundation picking up where the business leaves off and ensuring that every individual who supported us, whether they stay with Televerde or not, that for the rest of their lives, they have the tools and support needed to excel within Televerde or beyond.
It's fantastic. And it's only been in existence since 2020. So it's fairly new.
It is fairly new, and and Michelle has done um, such extraordinary work because she's a genius at building partnerships. So on the foundation side, she has really great partnerships with companies like Cisco and Salesforce and Arizona State University. I mean, Arizona State University, the WP Carey School, their MBA students, they actually roll out the career readiness program to our women. Um,
Really?
yeah, so to have MBA students going in and teaching you how to write a resume, and we rely on the business community too to provide services like mock interviews, and really getting feedback. Like my husband has actually done this multiple times. He loves it, where he'll do a mock interview and then he'll give a readout of what she did wrong, what she needs to improve, how she could be better. So this way, we're making sure that when they get out, they have the best possible chance of employment and that they're competitive to anyone who doesn't have, against even people who don't have a criminal background.
Well, with a 5%, 5.4% recidivism rate, you're doing a whole lot of rate work between the for-profit and not-for-profit sides of Televerde to ensure that women have this roadmap and that it's laid out for them and that they have the support. They have to do the work, obviously, but that they have the wraparound support front and back to support their reentry. So kudos to you and your team and all that you're doing. Talk to me a little bit about how employers could connect with you. So why they should connect and how they could connect with you.
So we have, televerde.com. So you can learn more about the sales and marketing solutions that we offer. I would also encourage people, one of the most life-changing experiences I think people have is when they visit our call centers. So that's taking potential clients or clients out to our centers to meet with the women who are ultimately going to be supporting their campaigns. I have never met with a client or a prospect who hasn't left there describing this experience as life changing. And it is, because you're sitting in front of these women and you're hearing their stories. And while you realize that they're there because they broke the law in some way, you hear their journeys and you start to understand, one, that there's context behind bad decisions. That's not to excuse the bad decision. It's just to say that some people have had really difficult lives, and some people have also not had the privilege that many of us have. Access to good lawyers. That's a huge thing. Parents who are committed to your growth and all that. Communities that are with you. I mean, that's not the case for majority of the women that work for us. So you learn that, and I think through that experience, you also see that you have more in common with the woman sitting in front of you wearing orange than you thought when you walked in. So we can't bring everybody into our prison, but what we did do is we created a Televerde virtual roundtable, which is also on our website. And I highly encourage your listeners to visit that website and to sit down with one of the 15 women, actually 14 women, because there's one man, and listen to their stories. Because I think, you know, we have a perception about people who are in prison. It's been informed throughout our lives by media and reinforced by Hollywood. And what you see inside of our prisons is is the opposite of that. There is no dramatization. It's just men and women who are looking for hope and opportunity. So I would encourage people to go sit with one or more of those people and really listen to their stories. And I think you'll be very moved. And I think how you'll never look at the incarcerated community the same after that. Um, and then, yeah, I would love to have conversations to see how we might be able to drive more outcomes for businesses. Because the unique thing about Televerde is we have this dual purpose. So by working, with you, we're helping you optimize results, and then you're also giving women, um, a second chance opportunity, a chance to build a career from behind prison walls. I mean, it's extraordinary. So there really is this return on investment, return on purpose that I don't think other partners can offer in kind of our B2B space.
And
To me,
so
it's
is it any size employer? Is there a certain niche that Televerde is focused on?
most of our companies are in that large kind of enterprise space.
Okay.
So, more, it's a focus on technology, not all technology company. We don't just do technology companies. We also venture into other industries as well. But generally, yeah, we are partnering with the larger enterprise companies. That is
Who need
primarily
sales?
who makes up our customer base.
Okay. Who need those sales and customer contact skills?
Inside sales, demand generation, and also we do inbound customer support.
Ah, okay. Very good. Okay. So wrapping us up, there's untapped talent in prison, and your model works. It's working. Your results show it. It's all statistical. It's not, it's all fact-based. So thank you. Thank you for sharing this. Thank you for what you're doing and your team is doing throughout the organization. You really are changing the face of incarceration. I love the call to action for our listeners in terms of going to televerde.com. They could also connect with you, Kellie, on LinkedIn.
Yes, absolutely. Kellie Walenciak. It's a hard name to spell. Yeah.
We'll put both of those links below in the comment section. But really appreciate you coming on today. Appreciate what you're doing for women, and it sounds like for men too. But you're focused really on women and helping them create pathways, prosperous pathways for them outside of prison. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Brightworks Consulting hosts this podcast and YouTube channel to spotlight the leadership around the world that is changing lives. Brightworks offers a myriad of consulting services in the public and private sector, to include diversity, equity, and inclusion solutions for any size company. You can find us at www.brightworksconsulting.com. We're honored to have Best Companies AZ as a presenting sponsor for this podcast. Best Companies AZ is your #1 source for regional employer branding. You can find them at www.bestcompaniesaz.com.